May you sparkle with moments of love, laughter, and goodwill. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from the Great Debaters Contest. The Great Debaters Contest is powered by Blaze, by Safaricom, the Youth Network.
Welcome to the Hub of Edutainment. This is the Great Debaters Contest, and this is the Eldoret edition. I am Austin Yumbok. Our motion today is developing nations should put restrictions to rural to urban migration. We have KAPSABET boys going against UASIN GISHU High School. Who will be the victor? I am yet to know. Proposer number one, you have 3 minutes.
I recall some years back, my brother came home and told me, "Young man, I'm leaving." I asked him, "Where are you going and why?" He told me that I'm going to Nairobi and I'm going there to look for a job. Well, after a week, I asked him. I called him and he told me that, "Bro, I'm doing well here. Nairobi is fine. Nairobi is fun." We didn't get from him for the next 3 months. Then suddenly, one night, when we were silently watching news in our living room, someone had been shot dead because of larceny. Well, when we checked on the name of that person, it resembled the name of our brother. Then after some time, the photo that was shown was actually the photo of my brother. My brother was killed because of robbery. He did not leave home a robber. I don't know what happened in Nairobi. I'm Odhiamba Sembo, here to propose the motion, developing nations should put restrictions to rural-urban migration. What are developing nations? These are nations where the average income is so low and they depend mainly on farming and international aids for their support. A restriction is simply a limiting condition, especially a legal one. Rural-urban migration, this is a movement of people from the countryside to the metropolitan cities. Take an instance whereby everyone was to move from the rural areas to the urban areas. Even those young, hardworking farmers, they left the rural areas. This means the production of the country will be low, and therefore they'll be forced to import products from other nations, therefore suppressing their economy. If rural-urban migration was restricted, they could have strengthened the economy and saved the money which they had used to import these products. Let's take a second instance, whereby everyone moves to the urban areas. There'll be a high population in the urban areas, which means the government will have to spend more money to provide social amenities for these people in the urban areas. Therefore, more resources will be concentrated in the urban areas, forgetting the rural areas. This one will mean that an unfair distribution of resources will happen. Therefore, if rural-urban migration is restricted, there will be fair distribution of resources. A third instance is whereby when there is a high population in the urban areas, it will mean that there will be few jobs for these people. Therefore, others will resort to high crimes, leading to high crime rates. 61% of crime in our nation is in Nairobi, an urban center. Thank you.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes to make your argument.
My brother has already said it, but now let's get a factual representation or explanation on the key words of our motion for today. Restrictions are limiting conditions, while developing countries are countries that are still undergoing continuous development. Now, what will happen when we take these restrictions into these developing countries? It's just like caging a young bird. You would have prevented it from feeling the breeze of cool air as it cruises the sky. You would have limited its opportunities towards even having its own family. My name is Rose Kalano from UASIN GISHU High School. Now, why did I use this cage? This cage is like a restriction. That is exactly what is going on in these developing countries. If we restrict people to move from rural areas to urban areas, we would have really restricted their talents. How many times in the news have we seen people from rural areas coming up with very brilliant ideas, creating aeroplanes and stuff, but because they have not gone to school, they cannot continue? If we take these people to urban areas for their talents to be developed, they will get enough knowledge about their talents, and they will go back to their rural areas where they will even be employed by the county government to develop their rural areas. Remember that boy who learned how to generate electricity using a phone battery? He had not even stepped into school. If we restrict him from coming to urban centers to learn about it, we would have really killed and denied that boy the right to develop his center. Let's think about technology. We live in the 21st century. We well know that technology is well developed in urban centers. Now think about this. If we prevent people moving from rural areas to urban centers, will they ever know how to develop themselves technologically, even educationally? This debate, we just heard about some group of people who restrict their children from getting polio jabs. That is because they are illiterate. In rural areas, if they see a person suffering from polio, they will only say that that person is a victim of witchcraft. Let them come to urban centers to learn the importance of polio jabs on their children so that they do not undergo this misfortune. Let's talk about agriculture. Agriculture is the backbone of our economy. If we restrict people to move from rural to urban centers, to declare and to sell their products, how will we move? That's a point to think about.
It's now time for rebuttals. May we have the second proposer take the stage.
When I read through Shakespeare's book, of which all of you have heard about, Romeo and Juliet, I found this character, Benvolio, telling Romeo that give your eyes some liberty and let them examine other beauties. I don't know what beauties we see in these urban centers, yet 100 square years ago, we were still in just these rural centers, but life was continuing anyway. The first opposer analogized whatever is happening with a caged bird, that you are locked at wherever you are and not allowed to go to urban centers. Then why did the government bring devolution? It was to bring the services closer to the people. Urban centers, it's not a must that they exist so that life can continue. You can still develop in the rural centers. Not so long ago, my grandfather came to Kisumu, where I stay, from Fangano Island for treatment. And when you're watching TV that evening that he came, the Kenya Bureau of Statistics was there at Citizen TV, saying that life expectancy right now in Kenya is 50 to 55 years. Then my grandfather asked me a question. Aboge, where are the young suckers that will grow when the old banana tree dies? Because you are dying at a very young age. I'm 83 and I don't walk using a stick. But look, you are dying at 55. What is wrong with you guys? This is because you are eating these cheap things that you call chips, I don't know what, because they are not helping you. So generations of these developing countries, they are becoming weaker and weaker as age goes by. We are taking what's not good for us. The Kenya Bureau of Statistics mentioned some of the main reasons why our age expectancy is always derailing. It's because of diseases such as influenza, diarrheal diseases, malnutrition, and stroke. When I was sick in school, I was taken to KAPSABET District Hospital. There were 5 people in front of me where I was going to the consultant physician, and all of them were children. The only thing I could see on their legs were varicose veins. And when they got out of the consultation office, the diagnosis was that, oh, they are not exercising. That's why they have varicose veins. Oh, one of them also had high blood pressure. And they were told to go and run in their school like hell because they are in Nandi County. So I don't think that going to urban areas is going to help, because if they had been in the rural areas, there's socially hard work there. People have to run. People have that natural African lifestyle aspect. Secondly, a lie is like a dead fish, which is always come up to the surface of the pond and tell you everything. The white men cheated us that their culture is better and they're made of a bigger God and we are made by a smaller God. These days, why do they come to Africa? Because of tourism. And I want to tell you that because of that tourism, we have a greater culture than them, which if you go to urban areas, is usually spoiled. You usually find Maasais wearing ties. But why do they come here to Africa? So that they can see our culture, because we have a better culture. My name is Johnson Aboge, KAPSABET High School. Thank you.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes for your cross-examination.
First and foremost, I want to give a correction to my opponents who say that social amenities would be cheaper in rural areas. We all pass through from class 1 to 8 when we learned of different populations in the primary sector. In primary sector, we learned about scattered population, and that is what is in rural areas. Why am I saying this? For example, we have sat down here. When you have many people, there's a lot of, let's say, for example, when you've sat here, there's a lot of many people. If I want to supply the sweets to you guys, it will be very easier, because if I give sweets, the services will be easier. It will be cheaper to give services to people who are in close proximity than to give services to people who are scattered. And the other one said about work in rural areas. I know there's work in rural areas, and I don't oppose that. But my question is, the difference in wages that people pay in rural areas. People who live in urban areas have a high wage in rural areas, in urban areas, but those in rural areas, they have a low wage in terms of salaries, and that creates a difference of wages. That's why in urban areas, we have a high standard of living. And to my first point, I oppose this motion because I encourage the movement of people from rural to urban areas. Why am I saying this? Because of the basic services. Just as one of my fellows said that polio. Kaleno mentioned polio when she said about polio vaccination. When I'm talking about polio vaccination, it's easier to give polio vaccination to people in close proximity than to give polio vaccination to people who are scattered. That will enhance services, and that would be cheaper for the nation. Take an example of water pipes. When you want to give a service of water pipe or electricity to other people, it will be very cheap when people are in close proximity. So the basic service will be so easy. If we talk of diversification, what is diversification? Diversification is variety of services, for example, in investment. That's diversification. So diversification in culture. For example, I come to the urban area. Culture in terms of tribe. I am a Kalenjin. I meet a Kikuyu guy. We get married. Our children won't have the mentality of Kalenjin, but both sides. Another point on diversification is in terms of the FGM. In 2015, I remember I sat down and watched a very terrific scene. This was a speech from a lady who, when she was born, they used to live in urban areas. And luckily, when the parents died, the lady had to be moved to the rural area. She underwent FGM. And if you watch this lady, she's called Jada Dukure from Gambia. That was so painful, because in rural areas, people don't have that straight mentality on the point of FGM. So we really discourage FGM when you come to the urban areas. And to my last point, there is no sustained economy without urbanization. So urbanization is very efficient for the people to come to the rural areas, to the urban areas, so that they will have surplus production, so that the production that they are given will be in surplus. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your questions. The proposers have been asked whether rural to urban migration directly affects the crime rates in urban centers, and the opposition have been asked, if we allow for rural to urban migration, who will produce our food? I now invite the third proposer to answer the questions.
My dear comrade there has asked if it's the ignorance of the citizens who are migrating from the rural to the urban. Yes, it is their ignorance. Simply because they think that there are jobs there, that they think people are employed on the basis of the fact that you're just in an urban center, you'll just be employed. Remember that these people, majority of them, are not literate. They have not gone to school. They will not come up to the requirements to be employed in an office or any other job that they want to pursue in the urban centers. My name is Kosgei Ignatius, here to propose the motion that the developing nation should put restrictions on rural to urban migrations. Now, he who chooses a wife on the basis of the dowry he paid will have a painful life. The culture of these days is being eroded. People are moving from the rural areas to the urban areas, which is diminishing oral traditions. Who will pass these cultural traditions to these kids or the younger generations in the community? People will not continue their cultural activities in their communities. This will suppress them. Because parents don't have that mandate anymore to continue passing the cultural virtues to their younger kids. Ladies and gentlemen, in this room, approximately 80% of you do not know their mother tongue. Reason being, you are born in towns. Your parents migrated from the rural areas where they were taught. I suppose that most of your parents know their mother tongue, simply because they were raised by their parents too in the rural areas, which they pass some of the virtues in their cousins in your rural areas. You cannot be passed to because even you don't understand your vernacular. Ladies and gentlemen, this is very bad. Kenya currently, according to the Kenya Bureau of Statistics, we have a debt of 4.2 trillion. That's a huge debt. Reason being, we depend so much on other countries, such as on food. Reason being, people move to the urban centers, congest, live in slums. They're giving the government pressure to cater for them. Thus, they have more debts to other countries. Currently, every child is born with a debt of about 100,000 because of the rural to urban migration. Tell me, isn't that a disease? My name is Kosgei Ignatius from KAPSABET High School.
Opposition, you have 3 minutes to answer the question.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for this opportunity. And first, before I say what I have to say, to my sister, when people come to the urban areas, this is whereby people get to interact with one another. People get to be brought close to each other. People from different diversities. That's where now, because the way I think is not the way you think, we'll get to share ideas and develop new methods. That's why we see there are something like greenhouses which have been developed because people get to sit together from different environments, get to share their ideas and get to learn new methods. And that's how our food can be produced, because we get to share with people from different conditions. Now, ladies and gentlemen, every day as I wake up, it is always my desire that when I retreat to my bed in the evening, I would have learned something new in the course of the day. I am Franklin Kipkemoi from UASIN GISHU High School, here to justify why me and you, we are in an urban center. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am a boy born in one small village in one of the Kericho Highlands. When I grew there, as I was growing, the only thing I could know how to do was to cultivate a tea. But now, when I came here, thanks to God, because of my Kikuyu neighbor. Now I can weave. You can ask my friends. Because as we meet, as we get to share our ideas, we get to learn new things. We get to love new ideas and diversify our economy. Then lastly, when we meet in our urban areas, first, we need to ensure economic growth. And the only way we can achieve economic growth is through urbanization. And how can we achieve urbanization is when we have the labor force and when we have agglomeration. Somebody can ask me, what is agglomeration? Agglomeration is simply a localized economy in which a large number of companies, services, and industries exist in close proximity to one another. And when now we have the large labor supply, as people move from the rural areas to the urban areas, they get to utilize these resources. And as they utilize these resources, we get to experience economic growth in our countries. Each and every other day, we talk about the development of Kenya. Everybody wants to see Kenya develop. It is my desire to one day stand and be proud that I am a Kenyan because Kenya has grown. And believe you me, let me give you an example. The Nigerian city of Lagos, in the year 1960, had a population of 665,000, and by 2000, 8.7 million, and by 2015, it was their desire that they will be the 11th world's biggest city. And indeed, they have achieved it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as we put a restriction to rural-urban migration, let's forget about having a developing country, but having a still nation. Thank you.
Time for final submissions. May we have a member of the proposing team take the stage? You have 1 minute.
I believe I should obey the words of the men of old, that brevity is the soul of wit. We might speak so many words here using many facts, but at the end, it's our actions that will speak. I don't want to be a man who has a diarrhea of creeds, but an anemia of deeds. So I want to do something here because the human body is driven by food. And let us give a product of what we are getting in the rural centers. This one I bought it at Chibarba today morning at only 10 shillings, a product of rural production. And I'll show you the sweetness. You can taste that. So we can't be able to enjoy such things when you all go to urban centers because we'll be too civilized for that one. Let us stick to our culture, because a person who lives his culture is a slave. Johnson Aboge, KAPSABET High School.
Opposition, you have 1 minute to make your final submission.
My brother, thank you so much for the maize. It's very sweet. In my school, it's in an urban center. We have a guy who sells maize. And next time, please tell him to add masala. It tastes sweeter. Now that's what we get when we move to urban centers, making things sweeter. Now, restricting people to move to urban centers is a kamikaze attack towards development. You talked about mother tongue. Now let me ask you, most of us would love to go and live in other countries. Now, if I learn to speak my mother tongue, how will that help me if I move to France? In my school, I do French, and I can proudly say, je parle français très bien. Now, if I move to France, I will learn how to speak with the people from France, and that will broaden my scope of thinking. Let's not live in a country where we'll be considering some people as savages, but let's think, what if we all become civilized? Where will our country be? Think about that.
KAPSABET boys, let's start with Assemble. Assemble, you had a good opening statement and also you appealed to our emotions. We move to Abonge. Abonge, you're a very good debater. You move us, you give out facts and things like those. It makes your argument very convincing. We go to Kosgei. Kosgei, you're also a good debater, but work more on your passion so that you can get better even in the next one.
UG, Kaleno. That's Rose. Good start. Very confident, good speaker. And I think you had a very powerful ending. I think the cross-examination of that ending really took the day because, you used the analogy for your help in a way, and that was very creative because when such people become such creative, you want to be either extra creative or decide to lose. But I think you decided to really play your game. That means you're very smart. Faith, you're a good speaker and very good submission. All you need to do, because you're penalized for that, is time management. When the bell goes, you want to end your submissions. Don't wait for the bell to go twice, almost going thrice. And also work on your style so that you can also have that presence. Franklin, you're outstanding in a way because you also come to the stage, you have that presence and command that even helps us have silence across the room. Very confident, good speaker and good submissions. I like the analogies of how you're living next to different neighbors and they're teaching you various things and that coherency in a way. And that's wonderful for your submissions as well as you're saying it's important for people to migrate. Let us wait for the results. All the best to both teams. Congratulations.
Members of the audience, with only a 0.5 difference. Yes. KAPSABET High School, the judges awarded you 72.5. Please give them a round of applause. UASIN GISHU High School, the judges saw it fit to award you 73. You are our winner for the debate. Congratulations to the two teams for such very high scores. We'd like to thank you, our studio audience, and also our viewers back home. Kindly keep the conversation going. Hashtag GDC for SDGs. Big thank you to Safaricom Blaze, our sponsor, and I've been your host, Austin Yombok. Catch you next time.
The Great Debaters Contest is powered by Blaze, by Safaricom, the Youth Network. May you sparkle with moments of love, laughter, and goodwill. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year from the Great Debaters Contest.